Hey, everybody. It's last week from the table for June 23rd, 2020. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. Hey, everybody. It's June 23rd, and this is last week from the table. This show is where we talk about, give a summary recap of the session, of what happened in my D&D games that I run on Twitch every week. All right, so Thursday nights at 8 p.m., the Sword Coast Chronicles. This is my, love letter to the uh, major published campaigns of 5th edition, where I was always curious once I saw an official chronology of when these adventures are supposed to happen. They all practically are happening on top of each other, and the events that are described in there, um, sometimes even seem like they might be happening at similar times, with different campaigns going on at the same time in the Sword Coast region. And so that always struck me as there's got to be some kind of reason for all this chaos at the same time. And boy, howdy, when I started thinking that way, I came up with a story idea. And so now this campaign allows me to weave the stories of these particular um, campaigns together and, tell the story of what's actually going on behind the stories. Kind of like the Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, for those of you of a certain age who remember that. Okay, this time we had session, I believe it was session 3 this time of the Sword Coast Chronicles, where the PCs actually reached the town where the campaign proper opens. I had put them on a caravan meandering around the Sword Coast just to kind of give a few sessions for the players to sort of get to know each other and to introduce them to some of my unique house rules, since most of them had only played in an Essentials game with me before. And so I took the time to introduce them to what I do with a skills challenge and to have them interact with some of the NPCs at different towns along the way and to fight some of the monsters that they would be facing as first level adventurers. And then, of course, they crest the hill and they see the little town of Greenest in the distance. And they see that it's under attack. And one of the attackers is a full-grown adult blue dragon in an encounter that's designed for first level characters, mind you. Just going to throw that out there. At Wizards of the Coast, when they wrote Tyranny of Dragons, the opening adventure that they put in that campaign was a little town being assaulted by a great blue dragon. And, in their mind, it's like, oh man, D&D players, they're just going to say, hey, let's go do it. They're like, shit, that's a grown dragon. Let's get the hell out of here. Which, when I first read that campaign, it's like, okay, yeah. You really would have to railroad this party. You'd have to railroad any party really hard to get them to willingly go and fight it. So, of course, I expected them to want to run away, and so I had a contingency plan. And so they saw that. They're like, oh, let's get out of here. Now, a couple of them were brave, and they wanted to scout and see what was going on. Unfortunately, um, due to one of them not being terribly stealthy and not thinking tactically very well, he was on a broom of flying. Now, I know what you're thinking. First level character with a broom of flying. How does that happen? Well, I told you that I had run an Essentials game. I ran the Dragon of Icespire Peak with these players. And as we got about halfway through that game, I said, all right. I said, you guys know that I told you at the beginning of the game, we're going to have a long-term campaign that starts after this is over. It's set 10 years in the future. Yeah, 8 to 10 years in the future after this Essentials game is set. And when you create your characters for it, I want you to give me 3 NPCs that your characters know, or that are, or that your characters are related to. And one of those PCs can be a character from the Essentials game. And I said one of the things I've always kind of liked about long-running D&D groups and long-running campaigns is the idea of sort of heirloom items. And so if your character in the Essentials game gets something that you want to pass along to a character um, in the new game, you can do that. Maybe after their adventuring days are over, something like that. If not, then you can start your first level character with a portion or with a certain sum of gold that would represent them being connected to a former adventurer that might have helped to fund their getting started. Give them some advantages that they didn't have when they were starting out. So I gave them, you know, a limit of what they could have. One uncommon item, one common item, and 2 potions, or they could take 600 gold and equip themselves with 600 gold. But if they bought things, they could buy no more than one one common item, one uncommon item, and 2 potions. So that was sort of the limit in terms of what they could have. And so one of them decided Broom of Flying. Okay, well, he thinks it's a bright idea. He's going to get on the Broom of Flying and fly towards the town while the dragon is in the air circling. Well, dragons have really good perception, and dragons like magical trinkets. So the dragon notices somebody flying through the air on a broom coming towards the danger. So the dragon kind of lazily goes and flies over towards it to find out what's going on. Well, uh, the dragon basically threatened, said, well, when I get done with this town, I happen to like magical trinkets like that. I'll come find you, and I'll take that broom for myself." And so threatened the character that way. So the character then decides, oh crap, I'd better get out of here, and runs back to the caravan. But of course, by then, the attackers of the town knew that at least one person was over there. That probably means more people are over there. And so it didn't take long for a detachment of kobolds and cultists to come running towards the caravan, and there was a fight. So now we didn't get too much farther than the fight. Actually, finished up the fight on Thursday night. But now they know there's this threat hanging over the caravan that the dragon is going to be coming unless something is done about it. So the PCs have all decided, oh crap, well now we need to go and try to help the town defend against this stupid dragon so the dragon doesn't come and kill us. They are under no delusions that on their own they can defeat the dragon, but they're thinking, well, maybe the town has enough stuff, and if we help the town, they might be able to either kill or drive off the dragon. So that's what they're thinking. So that was one of those things. Like if you're a DM that's run games for any length of time, you look at that opening salvo, and that's like, why am I even going to bother running this campaign? Because my characters are just going to turn around and run in the other direction. Well, you kind of have to have that as a contingency plan. What's going to happen if they do? And my contingency was, these cult of the dragon is all over the place. So if they try to avoid the town, well, they'll just run into another group of cultists coming, um, either coming towards Greenest that intercept the caravan or something, and then they'll start to find out, oh wow, okay, the crap is going on, and they'll realize they can't run and hide from this cult because it's all over the place. All right, so join us on Thursday night to see what happens when they decide to set out for Greenest and see what they can do to help in the defense of the town. All right, this weekend on Saturday, there was over the weekend, Friday and Saturday, there was an online convention called Glitch.expo. And I wrote a one shot for that called Land of Contagion. I was hoping to run that mid to late afternoon, about 4 o'clock, but I was given a time slot of noon, so I had to run it from noon to 4. And it's kind of a zombie apocalypse meets uh, meets a contagion and confinement type of scenario. So it's escape room, zombie apocalypse, uh, figure out the recipe and how to put the components together to make an antidote for the problem. All right. So, Land of Contagion, it starts off with people who had been loyal junior members of a court of of a former benevolent king. Well, a usurper duke has come in, deposed and exiled the former king, and imprisoned or executed a whole lot of the officials, including our PCs. And his mad wizard is experimenting on people. And over the time that they've been in the dungeons, they don't know how long it's been, but they've been getting gradually weaker because they're malnourished and all this kind of stuff. Um, they uh, they finally get taken into the wizard's lab, which is kind of lab slash torture chamber, and they're tied down to these slabs. They're very weak, and the wizard, in grand villain fashion, comes in just like every James Bond villain does and explains his master plan of how he is going to fill them um, with a serum that is going to improve their abilities, their mental acuity, their physical strength, their uh, sharpen their spellcasting ability, all this kind of stuff. And he is going to uh, raise them up as companions for the new king. And the king is going to be um, the king is going to have all of these powers, but the wizard cannot help but reveal that he is going to have the wizard or have the king fall more and more under the wizard's control. What he doesn't say, but what they find out later, is that he also intends for them to fall under his control, and that within a few years, um, the king will meet with a mysterious and untimely death. And that will leave the wizard as the new king. And now these companions will be his companions. And, the party will just continue. It will be a beautiful new renaissance. Uh, and of course, the PCs are all listening to this going, okay, I don't think so. We don't like this king, and this guy is nutty as a fruitcake. So he does the ritual, and they all black out when this energy courses through them. When they come to, they're still on the slabs, but they're alone in the room. The wizard is no longer there. All of their belongings are sitting next to the tables that they are on. Um, they're able to work themselves out of their straps. And then they start realizing, hey, there's blood on the floor. And 3 of the 4 doors look like they've been magically warded. And the 4th door has bloody handprints on it. Um, and so they start investigating what's going on. And as they start getting all their gear together and approaching the 3 doors that have been warded, they can hear the sounds of things beating on them on the other side. And so then they get to the 4th door and they realize, oh, it's got a magical, basically a magical combination lock on it. And they have to figure out how to work the magical combination lock. And once they do, it unlocks that door. They go in and they can lock that door behind them, and they find themselves in the wizard's personal quarters. And there they find a journal, and that reveals more information to them. Uh, and as they're studying that, they get attacked by the wizard's familiar and a couple of imps. And so they have to fight those off. And then they discover a secret door, which leads them into an underground, basically an underground garden area that's full of all kinds of fungus and animal life and stuff like that. Now, we kind of got a little bit behind schedule, as things do. So I cut short some of the fights that had been planned in the fungus area. But basically, from the journal, they found out these components that they would need to make an antidote that would basically keep them from falling under the mental control of the wizard now that they've been forced to have this compound in them, um, you know, by the ritual that the wizard did. And they also discover a poison. I wanted to give them choices, so I laid out a recipe for an antidote. I also laid out a recipe for a poison, and a recipe for something that would neutralize a potion, because they learned that basically they were the test subjects. Um, and if they were killed, the wizard would have to go back to the drawing board. But if they survived, then the wizard would know that the uh, concoction was safe to give to the king, and to allow him to, uh, you know, go forth and live out his fantasies, little knowing that the wizard was going to, have him meet an untimely death soon in the future. So the fact that they survived meant, oh, okay, so we have an option. We can poison the king. We can poison the wizard. We can neutralize the potion he's going to give to the king, or we can do an antidote for ourselves. And so they decided to make both the poison and the antidote for themselves. And so there was a 4th act that I cut completely because of time constraints. And that was going to be navigating their way back to the lab while they were being chased by zombies and other undead. And that was a series of puzzles where they would need to turn wheels to close off different sections of a maze so that zombies and skeletons and ghouls couldn't get to them, and they could safely get through to back to the wizard's lab. But we just bypassed that altogether because it was getting fairly close to time. And then the fifth and final act was back in the wizard's lab, where now they have all these ingredients. How do they put them together? And so they went ahead and they put together the ingredients, and there were clues in the journal and in an index of magical components that basically, the journal told them what components they need, and the index had notes about each component and how, the kinds of effects it would have if it were, depending on what order it was used in a formula. And so from those clues, they were able to figure out what to put in first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And so they were pretty confident after reading through all of the stuff that they knew which one was which. And so they did it. And of course, according to my notes, they got it correct. And they successfully made the antidote. And they successfully brewed the poison. So about the time they got that done, um, they hear laughter approaching, and it's the king and the wizard coming. And they are in fine spirits, and the wizard uh, says, "Yes, king, here are these fine companions. You see, they're hale and hearty, and they are none the worse for wear. So um, I have the potion that I can give you that will enable you to become our great, um, wise and wonderful king." And so he's really happy about that. And then the wizard says, "But first, let's have a toast." And he bade a couple of the PCs to go pour wine for a toast. And of course, they took the opportunity to slip the poison into the wine glass that they were going to give to the king and the wizard, not into the wine glasses they were going to give to the rest of the party. And so uh, when the king and the wizard took the poison, they pretty soon started showing the effects, and they died. And then there was a little epilogue where the deposed, exiled king came back to the kingdom, and the PCs thought, "Oh, hey, we're going to be heroes for all this, right?" The um, king does an investigation, finds out basically what happened, who was responsible for getting rid of the king and the wizard. And so he calls them all to his chambers, and he says, for a private ceremony, not for some big public spectacle, but for a private ceremony. And he says, "Hey, I want to thank you all. I'm, the king is out of the way, and I'm back because of the work that you all did. However, I'm disturbed because you did raise your hand against a sitting king. And so that means you're a little too dangerous to keep around the court. So why don't I offer you some land and some money, and you guys just go away from court and go to the far edges of the kingdom and don't bother me again." And so they did get rewarded, but they didn't quite get the rewards that they thought they were going to get because, yeah, if they're willing to kill a king, even a king that usurped the throne, yeah, the next king is like, "Yeah, maybe I'm not really willing to have you around." So, I just thought that was kind of an interesting little twist to give them. I didn't want to have him say, "Oh, well, you murdered a king, so now you must die," and that would be dumb. But I did want to have them realize, "Oh crap, okay, yeah, you're not going to be treated as a hero if you raise your hand against the king." So the players all enjoyed it. It was fun. Um, couple of technical issues. One shots always seem to have those. I'll do enough of them eventually that I'll get everything down to a science. But it was okay. The players were happy and had fun, so that makes me happy. All right, and finally on Sunday, the Walker of Waterdeep. That's 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and this is my planeswalking D&D campaign that explores the realms of Magic: The Gathering. Right now, they are in Innistrad. We have just had a slight cast shuffle. We had one player that, for various reasons, had to bow out of the game, and a new player has come in and brought a new character into the game. So we had established that they were living in Innistrad. They were not necessarily a native to Innistrad, and the characters have met this new player, new character, a couple of sessions ago. But this was the first time that they really got a chance to interact with them on a longer term. And they discovered that this new character is actually from the Underdark. And instead of being a human like almost everybody else in Innistrad, he is in fact a dark elf. A dark elf male, bard, who has come out of the Underdark and has a connection to someone that they all know, because the person who was sort of the catalyst for this whole campaign was a planeswalker who originally was from Innistrad. And it just so happened that when our one player left, that's where we were in the story, as we were back in Innistrad. So it made it very easy to give this new character a motivation for wanting to join this party and continue in the mission, because he knew this other character from Innistrad, and now that person has been kidnapped. And that's part of the reason that the people are here, is to try to chase down things they need to help rescue the person from her kidnappers. And so they're moving forward with this, and they started off to head towards a mine where they need to get some materials that, like I said, are going to help them rescue their benefactor from her kidnappers. And before they could get there, they got attacked twice. The first time they got attacked by some werewolves, and these are not just any werewolves. These are Eldrazi, two different kinds of Eldrazi werewolves, which are kind of a mutated eldritch hybrid monstrosity type of werewolf. Just a really crazy thing that they have like tentacles and breath weapons and all that kind of other crap out of Magic: The Gathering. And then after they dealt with those werewolves, they got a little closer to the mine, and they got attacked by tree folk. So the trees from the forest, literally the trees from the forest of Innistrad. Kessig is the province that they are in now. Came alive and started attacking them. So they never made it to the mine. They're still on the way to the mine. In fact, we had to stop the session in the middle of the fight against the trees. So we will resume with that fight in the trees starting on this coming Sunday at 2:30 p.m. So that is a recap of the two adventures that I'm running and that one shot that I ran over the weekend. If you like everything that we're doing here on this channel, please click the subscribe button down below. ring the bell. That will let you know every time a new video drops on this channel. And if you have any tales about your own campaigns that you're in, please leave those in the comments. Or if you've been listening to our adventures on the archives, it'd be great to hear some of the moments that you've appreciated or liked about our game in the comments on the channel. All right, everybody. Thanks again. Take care. Have a great week. Hopefully, we will see you back here tomorrow for Arcane Wednesday. Otherwise, have a great week. And always remember to try to make your games memorable so that you can have tales from your D&D table that you can share as well. Good night, everybody.